1 Olive tree information. Olive tree wiki. Olive tree info and uses. The olive tree is a perennial, evergreen tree that can live and produce olives for more than a century. In some rare cases, olive trees have been reported to live and produce sprouts at an age of 1800 years old. The tree reaches a height 15 to 65 feet, 5 to 20 meters. As it happens with most trees, the height of the tree is affected by the vividness of the subject or of the variety, the soil and climate conditions, and finally the cultivation methods used. The trunk is cylindrical, smooth on young trees and bumpy in older, because lumps of varying size appear as the time goes by. The root system of the olive trees develops vertically until the 3rd to 4th year of its life. Later on, the original root system is replaced by another flocculent root system, produced mainly by spheroblasts or conger, formed in the olive tree neck, just below the soil surface. The root system development method is mainly determined by the nature of the soil. In some cases, it is reported that olive trees developed roots, which had reached 40 feet, 12 meters, in width and 20 feet, 6 meters, in depth. Olive trees are cultivated globally in an area covering more than 15 million hectares. The number of cultivated olive trees reaches and maybe exceeds the stunning number of 1 billion. About 80% of these trees are located in the Mediterranean region. Countries such as Spain, Italy, Greece, Tunisia and others traditionally export olive oil, which is the cornerstone of the agricultural economic development and sustainability of some of those countries. However, other countries such as USA, Australia, Japan, China etc. have during the last 2 decades realized the huge economic and strategic importance of olive trees. Thus, they have given financial motives to olive growers, in an effort to become autonomous in olive products. The olive tree plays a very important role, because not only does it utilize land that is unsuitable for other crops, but also helps to protect the soil from erosion. The main products produced by olive tree are olive oil and table olives. The pomace of olives is also important for industrial use. Some other byproducts that may have economic importance are the leaves, wood, core etc. Finally, olive trees are often grown in pots indoors or outdoors as ornamental. The genus Olea includes 30 different species, which are cultivated in 5 continents. The most important of these are Olea europea, L. subspecies Euromediterranea, Olea europea, L. subspecies Cuspidate Vol. Sif. Olea europea, L. subspecies Laparini bat and trap, Olea chrysophylla lamp, Olea hocastederi, Olea somaliensis, Olea subtrinervita. 2 Growing olive trees. How to grow olive trees. Olive commercial cultivation. Growing olive trees commercially first requires suitable climate conditions and the selection of a field with certain characteristics. In a few words, olive trees prefer well-drained soils, flat or with gentle slope, and exposure to direct sunlight. They cannot tolerate temperatures below 20 degrees F, -7 degrees C, for many days, but a certain amount of cold is necessary for the fruit development. This is the reason why olive trees cannot be grown in tropical climates. The average olive tree starts to produce olives at the age of 4 to 5 years and they will continue to eternity. There are findings suggesting that in some cases 1800 years old trees still produce sprouts. The olive tree responds greatly to irrigation and fertilization, while pruning is necessary at least every other year. Provided you take care of your olive trees, you will harvest an average production of 50 to 200 pounds, 22 to 90 kilograms, per every mature healthy tree. Having a good understanding of alternate bearing is essential for cultivating commercially olive trees. 3 Are olive farms profitable? Starting an olive farm. Olive farms are indeed very profitable in the mid and long term, provided the climate and the region are suitable for growing olive trees. However, as it happens in nearly all agriculture and livestock commercial activities, the first year is introductory and a farmer shall make a small rational investment in order to test his/her strength and acquire a basic understanding of the market, without expecting a considerable income. During the second, the third and the fourth years, the farmer will acquire enough farming experience and market data in order to decide on extending the investment to a larger scale, selecting another location/variety, adjusting cultivation methods or divest. Especially when cultivating olive trees, a farmer shall be patient, because olive trees achieve good yields after their 5th or 6th year of life. This means that if a farmer selects and plants young trees of 2 to 3 years old, then he/she shall expect good yield about 2 to 4 years after the establishment of the olive farm. Moreover, as it happens in nearly all fruit trees, you need economies of scale. This means that you cannot make a good income and live solely from growing 30 or 50 olive trees, because fixed costs will surely reach, if not exceed, earnings. The minimum number of trees providing a good income ranges from country to country. However, we can say that a farm of 1 hectare, 10.000 square meters, with 300 trees is a good start. You can see here olive oil prices. For olive tree alternate bearing. Olive tree growers must have a good understanding of alternate bearing, because it will surely affect their production. Alternate bearing is the tendency of some fruit trees to produce much greater than average crop in one year and much lower than average crop in the following year. Alternate bearing is a common phenomenon in many fruit tree species and causes severe labor and economic problems, because the production is not the same or nearly the same, in terms of quantity, year by year, and in many cases it cannot be projected by the grower. The olive tree is widely known for its strong tendency for alternate bearing, biennial bearing, which severely affects the fruit yield from year to year. A large production in year 1 removes most of the various carbohydrates, organic nitrogen components and other essential nutrients, making the available stock insufficient to produce a new crop in year 2. Some farmers believe that, through supplying olive trees with excessive nutrients in year 1 or in year 2, they can minimize the phenomenon of alternate bearing. However, researchers have proven that summer pruning and sophisticated irrigation are some of the methods that have some chances of achieving partial normalization of fruit production. 5. Olive tree propagation and pollination. Olive tree propagation. The propagation of olive tree by seed and asexually is relatively easy. The propagation by seed is not recommended for commercial use, because the varieties of olives may differ significantly from the variety of the seed. Moreover, the plant's seedlings are characterized by very long period of juvenility, resulting in remarkable delay of fruition. The olive tree is asexually propagated by rooted suckers, cuttings and grafting. Professional olive farmers choose cuttings or grafts in order to achieve product uniformity and quality. In a few words, professional growers benefit from a tree that is a combination of 2 different plant tissues, the rootstock and the scion. The rootstock is the lower part of the tree and produces the root system. Rootstock also determines the tree's final height. The scion produces the upper part of the tree and of course determines fruit's characteristics. Both the rootstock and the scion must be carefully selected, and each one of them may result in poor production. Olive tree pollination. Most varieties of olive trees are self-fertile, meaning that you can get fruit by having just one tree. Pollen from the anthers, the male part of the plant, is transferred to the stigma, the female part of the plant, of the same tree. However, there are some varieties of olive trees that are not self-fertile. Those varieties need another tree or sometimes more than one tree for pollination, not of the same variety. The olive tree pollen is transferred primarily by wind. Research findings recommend that growers plant at least 3 olive varieties in close proximity in their farms to promote some cross-pollination, which has been found to increase yield by at least 10%. 6. Olive tree climate temperature requirements. The olive tree thrives in areas with Mediterranean climate, where mild winters are followed by sunny springs and hot summers. The areas where olive trees are cultivated for commercial use must have an average annual temperature of 60 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. The absolute maximum temperature can reach 104 degrees F, 40 degrees C, without causing damage, but the minimum should not fall below 20 degrees F, -7 degrees C. Lower temperatures than this can cause serious damage to the trees. Of course, The temperature of 20°F is only indicative, because the resistance of the tree in cold depends on other factors as well, such as how quickly the temperature drops, the length of the frost, the presence of strong cold winds, humidity, germination and health of the tree variety, weather conditions before frost, etc. In general, we can say that the olive tree cannot not be cultivated commercially in areas where the temperature often drops below 20°F, -7°C. However, a certain amount of cold is necessary for the fruit set. This is the reason why olive trees cannot be grown in tropical climates. 7 Olive tree soil requirements. The success of an olive grove depends on the natural environment, the selection of suitable field and varieties, and the application of appropriate cultivation techniques. Olive farms that are installed on flat sites and sites surrounded by hills are not only exposed to spring frosts, but also run the risk of serious frost damage during the winter. A slightly downward location, resulting in a flat surface, where the cold currents can escape easily, is a proper place to install the grove. Flat places where no frosts or cold winds are reported are also suitable. The average olive tree also needs plenty of sunlight in order to produce a good yield. It also hates excessive soil moisture. Consequently, the farmer must choose a well-drained field, where rainwater cannot easily stagnate. In order to avoid the risk of attack by various fungi on our olive grove, the soil must be kept fallow for 3 or 4 years before planting our young olive trees. Alternatively, the field can be planted with a grass mixture for a couple of years, and then cleaned. In order to install an irrigated olive grove on uneven ground, the latter must first be leveled. The leveling takes place before the deep plowing. The deep plowing of 20 inches, 45 to 50 centimeters, aims mainly at destroying perennial weeds and soil fluffing, which contributes to better development of the root system of trees. Before plowing, however, it is good to make a basic soil analysis, and depending on its results, specify the type and quantity of basic chemical fertilizers needed to improve soil. Ask a licensed agronomist. In many cases, farmers add 20 to 30 tons of manure per hectare. Keep in mind that 1 ton equal 1,000 kilograms equal 2.200 pounds and 1 hectare equal to 47 acres equal 10.000 square meters. 8 Planting olive trees. Olive farm establishment. Olive tree planting and spacing. Number of olive trees per acre. As far as the seedlings are concerned, farmers generally prefer those aged at least 2 to 3 years. We can of course plant 1-year seedlings, but this will most probably delay our first harvest. The field selection and preparation is followed by labeling the positions where we will plant the seedlings. We must first decide the exact point where each young tree will be planted and then dig the proper hole with dimensions 20 inches x 20 inches, 50 centimeters x 50 centimeters. We should note that the seedlings must be planted at the same depth as they were in the nursery. The surface soil of the pit must drop below the ball of the seedling. The planting of seedlings in areas where frost is not reported starts from late fall, November to late February, while in areas with frost the planting starts in early spring, when even the last frosts have passed. As far as the planting distances between trees are concerned, a 20 x 20 feet, 6 x 6 meter, distance is frequently used. This is obviously a square planting system and results in 109 trees per acre or 272 trees per hectare. If the soil is too fertile, planting the olive trees as a denser scheme will result in mutual shadowing. Moreover, the roots of the trees will cross each other and compete. However, there are also other things we should take into consideration when we decide on planting distances, i.e., mechanical harvesting, desired canopy shape, etc. Consequently, there is an ongoing debate on the efficiency of dense versus sparse planting system and square, rectangle or line planting systems. The tree population in commercial olive orchards ranges from 150 to over 900 trees per hectare, 1 hectare equal to 47 acres equal 10.000 square meters. 9 Olive tree fertilizer requirements. How to fertilize olive trees. Olive farm fertilization. It was previously believed that the olive tree was suitable for poor and dry soils and could give medium yields on land considered unsuitable for other tree crops. This is partially true, but it doesn't mean that the olive tree actually prefers such an environment. The olive tree prefers fertile soils with adequate moisture, so that it can give sustainably high yields for many decades. Before we apply any fertilization method in our olive grove, we shall check the physical properties of soil, texture, soil permeability, etc., as well as the levels of available nutrients. These figures influence various other variables that finally affect yield. Thus, knowing them is useful for dealing with lack or excess of some nutrient and avoiding tree stress. Two very interesting parameters are the soil pH and the soil calcium content, because they both affect the absorption of some nutrients that are supplied by fertilizer. The optimum pH for the olive tree is about 6.5, but the average olive tree can produce fruits at soils with pH from 5 to 8. A common corrective action in order to fix the soil pH before planting young olive trees is adding lime to the soil. Consult your local licensed agronomist. The minimum acceptable nutrients rates after chemical leaf analysis are 1.5% for N, 0.1% for P and 0.5% for K. Nitrogen is the most important nutrient element when we grow olive tree for olive oil or table olives. Nitrogen is necessary for germination and production of olives. The main symptom of a lack of nitrogen is small in length annual vegetation. The leaves are much shorter than normal and do not gradually turn deep green as normal leaves. When we diagnose a lack of nitrogen, we should consult the local agronomist in order to form a rational fertilization program. A common olive tree fertilization scheme used by hundreds of experienced olive farmers involves adding 8 to 15 pounds, 4 to 7 kilograms, of NPK November 15 fertilizer in every adult tree once or twice a year. The most suitable period is during fall and winter in non-irrigated trees. We can add the fertilizer in the ground at a radius of 2 to 3 feet, 60 to 90 centimeters, from the trunk, so as to avoid excessive concentration of a nutrient in one spot versus another. However, these are just some common practices and should not be followed without making your own research. Every field is different and has different needs. It is beneficial to test your soil at least once a year, and take corrective actions after consulting an expert. The organic matter in the various stages of decomposition, especially as humus, is beneficial in many ways. It improves soil conditions, such as consistency in light soils. It also improves the texture of heavy soils, functions as pH adjustment, maintains soil moisture, increases soil capacity, activates soil microorganisms and increases the absorption of nutrients. Consequently, organic fertilizers are often the basis of a rational olive fertilization program. During the autumn, manure slurry can be provided and incorporated into the soil. In olive farms with no irrigation and no frequent rainfalls, many farmers provide 10 to 20 tons of manure per hectare every 2 years. In well-irrigated areas, this corrective action is often performed every 3 to 4 years. Again, these are just common practices and every farmer must make his/her own research and soil test or tissue analysis before applying fertilization methods. Keep in mind that 1 ton equal 1,000 kilograms equal 2.200 pounds and 1 hectare equal to 47 acres equal 10.000 square meters. Sufficient calcium levels are very important for a healthy olive tree, as calcium reduces susceptibility to diseases. The most common symptom of calcium deficiency is chlorosis, leaves turn pale or yellow-white. Calcium deficiency is often corrected by adding 13 to 15 pounds, 6-7 kilograms, of calcium oxide per mature tree. Consult your local licensed agronomist. Magnesium and boron are also important for the proper fruit development. Magnesium, Mg, is the central part of chlorophyll molecule, while boron, B, plays a vital role in the metabolism and transport of sugars. In many cases, if farmers diagnose magnesium or boron deficiency in the middle of the vegetative period, they often apply foliar fertilizers, 11, 0, 0, 16 MgO, 20.5% B. 10 Olive tree water requirements. How to irrigate olive trees. Olive farm irrigation methods. The olive tree is resistant to drought, but responds greatly to the supply of water by any method. Well-irrigated trees tend to produce higher yields, while the annoying phenomenon of alternate bearing can be mitigated through a rational and well-designed irrigation system. In general, olive trees that are cultivated for oil need less irrigation than those cultivated for table olives. Productive olive trees are irrigated, when needed, from the beginning of the growing season until the start of winter rainfalls, because lack of water can adversely affect the growth of vegetation, fruit set and development of fruit. In California, most olive farmers irrigate deeply their trees from May-June till harvest in a frequency ranging from once a week to once a month, assuming there are no rainfalls during this period. However, we must be careful not to over-irrigate. According to the University of California, oil production is optimized between 40 and 70%, etc. Crop evapotranspiration. Higher production is at the high end of this range. Best oil quality is at the lower end. Full irrigation increases pumping costs, promotes unnecessary vegetative growth, can reduce flowering, and increases pruning costs. As it happens in many other crops, there are movable and immovable irrigation systems that are commonly used in olive farms. Movable systems have no setup costs, but they are labor-intensive. Immovable systems require an initial investment and they have to be designed and built before planting the young olive trees. Olive irrigation systems can also be divided into low-volume systems, mainly drip systems suitable for soils with slope, and normal volume systems, sprinklers, which can supply a higher water quantity per minute. 11 Olive tree pruning. How to prune olive trees. As it happens in the vast majority of fruit trees, the olive tree reacts positively to pruning. We prune the olive tree in order to create strong trunk and crown frame. This allows the tree to withstand heavy load and high winds, to ensure adequate, quantitatively and qualitatively, crop with the prompt production of new fruit-bearing wood and to facilitate harvest and application of plant protection programs. Pruning may also help us reduce the tree tendency to alternate bearing. Finally, we prune in order to extend the productive life of the olive grove and remove dead wood. Pruning of olives trees often takes place immediately after harvesting the olives in areas where there is no danger of frosts. In other cases, pruning takes place during spring, March-April. When pruning, we must have in mind that the olive fruits can only grow in parts of the tree that grew the year before. In a few words, our purpose is to remove old growth, while trying to restrict the tree from becoming too big and dense. If we succeed in this, new growth will be promoted. Generally, we shall prune more the base and the lower branches, which normally have no fruit-bearing prospects and no value. Then, we shall clean the center of the tree, so that sunlight can have direct access to the inner part of it. Sunlight penetration is extremely important for fruit growth. Old, broken and diseased branches must also be removed. The frequency of commercial olive tree pruning ranges from once a year to once every 2 years. Not pruning our commercial olive trees for 3 or more years will definitely have a negative effect in production. Read more on olive tree pruning. 12 Harvesting olives. Olive tree harvest. Production yield of olive trees. There is a great debate on the optimum harvest time for olives. It depends greatly on weather conditions, olive tree variety, and cultivation methods. It also differs on whether we cultivate olive tree for table olives or for olive oil. Picking the right time is a matter of accumulated experience and can give the olive grower a competitive advantage in terms of production yield, organoleptic characteristics, color, taste, aroma. Generally, high temperatures during the fall result in early ripening and vice versa. There are many maturity indexes that set the standards for mature olives. The average olive production of a mature olive tree ranges between 50 to 200 pounds, 22 to 90 kilograms. There are of course striking exceptions, as there are cases in which a single olive tree produced 1,800 pounds, 820 kilograms, olives. However, Olive trees have to be more than 30 to 40 years old in order to achieve yields well above average. As a rule of thumb, the production of non-irrigated olive trees is directly related to their age, meaning that a 100 years old tree can normally produce more than what it produced when it was 60 years old. On the contrary, irrigated trees reach their most productive period at the age of 50 to 65 years. Harvesting olives can be made by hand or through sophisticated machines. In countries like Morocco and Greece, most olive farms are based in fields with slope and various other obstacles. As a result, mechanical harvesting is very difficult. Most olive farmers in these countries harvest the olives by hand. They use simple or electrical devices that shake the branches, making the olives drop in the ground. Then, they collect the olives, they put them in special bags and they deliver them to the mill normally during the same day. On the other hand, mechanical harvesting requires high-density, SHD, olive harvesters. These harvesters are consisted of a tall tunnel, a movable cab, extended catching length, a full-height picking system, and catcher plates. The machine passes over the tree, and inside the tunnel the branches are shaken, so that the olives drop in the plates. However, this method, mainly used in California, can only be applied in fields where the trees have limited height and are planted under certain patterns. Generally we shall deliver our olives to the mill immediately after harvesting them, because if stored they face multiple risks that may affect their quality. On average, 3 to 7 pounds of olives result in 1 pound of olive oil. 13 Olive tree diseases and pests. Most olive tree diseases are caused by bacteria, viruses and fungi. Crown gall. Crown gall is caused by the bacterium Agrobacterium tumefaciens and it usually concerns young trees. The most common symptom is tumors that appear in the roots, just above or below the soil line. Infected trees with many galls will gradually become unable to transfer water and nutrients to the upper parts of the tree. As a result, they slowly become weak and they finally die. The bacterium can survive for many years in the soil. Verticillium. Verticillium is a very serious fungal disease, caused by Verticillium dallii. In a few words, the first symptoms of verticillium is that the olive leaves start to curl and discolor. The infection then spreads to the other parts of the tree, root system, and after a few years it may result in the death of the tree. The pathogen may live in the soil, as spores, for 20 years or more. Thus, olive tree growers must be very careful when choosing the field where they will plant the young olive trees. They can avoid soils where tomato, potato or other vegetables were previously planted, as these crops are also susceptible to verticillium. Ask a licensed agronomist in your area. Other olive tree diseases are Cercospora leaf spot, peacock spots and olive anthracnose. Dacus olei, olive fly. The olive fly, Dacus olei, hits mainly the olive trees in the Mediterranean region and can diminish the olive production in a few weeks. Dacus olei is actually a small fly that is only fed by olives. The main symptom is dark spots that appear in the flesh of the olive fruit. This is where the hole is made and the eggs are laid. Dacus olei is a very serious problem for olive farmers, because not only does it destroy completely on average 50 to 60% of the production, but it also affects the quality of the remaining 40%. The acidity of the olive oil is highly increased and in most cases it cannot be marketed for human consumption. In most countries, hydrolyzed baits are used to prevent the population increase of olive fly. 14 QNAS Olive tree. Why olive trees cannot be grown from seeds? Olive trees can be grown from seeds. However, the propagation by seed is not recommended for commercial use, because the varieties of olives may differ significantly from the variety of the seed. Moreover, the plant's seedlings are characterized by a very long period of juvenility, resulting in remarkable delay of fruition. Do olive trees flower? Yes, olive trees do flower. In most cases, the period of flowering is during late spring, early summer, April-June. Do olive trees lose their leaves in winter? No, olive trees are evergreen and they do not lose their leaves in winter. However, all evergreen trees constantly renew their leaves, meaning they gradually drop all of their leaves and produce new ones throughout a period of 6 to 14 months. Are olive trees self-fertile? Most varieties of olive trees are self-fertile, meaning that you can get fruit by having just one tree. However, there are some varieties of olive trees that are not self-fertile. Are olive trees frost-resistant? They are frost-resistant to some extent, but they cannot tolerate very low temperatures for a long time. Olive trees originated in the Mediterranean region, where the winter is mild and the temperature rarely drops below 20 degrees F, -7 degrees C. In general, we can say that the olive tree should not be cultivated commercially in areas where the temperature often drops below 20 degrees F, -7 degrees C.